The first time he bit me, he cried. And somehow that made me angrier than the pain itself. I never asked to be dragged into a mansion that smelled like centuries of dust and despair, into the world of creatures that shouldn't exist. But when your best friend disappears, and the only clue leads to a cursed prince with a thirst for blood, you don't get to choose. The night it happened, rain hit the streets of Chicago like shards of glass. I'd followed rumors, whispers, and a trail of missing boys until I found the old manor by the river. Inside, everything was too quiet. The chandeliers swayed as if breathing, and then appeared, tall, ethereal, tragic, and wrong in every human way. His name was Adrian Blackthorne, the last vampire prince of a dying bloodline. The curse on his veins made human blood poisonous to him except mine. "I don't want to hurt you," he said that night, his voice trembling as his fangs grazed my neck. "But I can't stop. I should have run. I should have screamed. But instead, I stood still, frozen between terror and something else, something that felt like falling. After that, I became his source, his reluctant salvation. He drank from me in silence, always careful, always too gentle, as if afraid of breaking something fragile between us. And in those nights, under candlelight, I began to see him not as a monster, but as a man haunted by loneliness. "Do you ever think about freedom?" I once asked. He smiled faintly, eyes glimmering crimson. "Every day. But freedom always comes with hunger." There was poetry in his sadness, danger in his touch. He was centuries old yet spoke like a boy still learning what love meant. And maybe that's why I stayed. Maybe that's why my pulse stopped racing every time he came near. But Chicago isn't kind to secrets. Someone was hunting him, the Hunters, a secret organization that exterminated supernatural beings. And when they found out I was helping him, they branded me a traitor. One night, the manor burned. I still remember the way his hand slipped from mine amid the smoke, how his eyes turned wild when he realized the Hunters were surrounding us. "Go," he whispered. "If you stay, you die. And if I leave, you die," I shouted back. He smiled then, faint and tragic, like he'd already accepted it. "That's not your burden to carry, Daniel." But I refused, because by then, his pain had become mine too. We fled together through the forest, the air thick with gunpowder and ash. He was too weak to fight, starving because he hadn't fed in days. And so, beneath the blood-red moon, I made a choice that changed everything. "Take it," I said, pulling him close, pressing his lips to my throat. "If my blood keeps you alive, then take it all." His eyes widened. "You'll die. Then die with me." For a moment, the world stopped. The forest went silent, the wind holding its breath. Then, slowly, he sank his fangs into my skin, not out of hunger, but out of desperation, love, and despair intertwined. I remember the warmth, the dizziness, the sound of his heartbeat syncing with mine. I remember thinking that maybe monsters don't exist. Maybe we just call them that because they love too deeply. When I woke, I was lying in the ruins of the manor. The fire had died out, so had the Hunters, and Adrian was gone. Weeks passed. I told myself he didn't survive, that my blood wasn't enough. But sometimes, in my sleep, I'd feel his breath against my neck, hear his voice whispering, "I'm still here." Then, one snowy morning, I found a letter on my windowsill. No name, no address, just a single line written in his handwriting. "When the moon bleeds again, I'll come back for you." And beneath it, a single drop of dried crimson. "Winter in Chicago can make ghosts feel real. The snow doesn't fall. It lingers, clinging to the world like a memory that refuses to fade. And on nights like this, silent, endless, heavy with regret, I almost believe he's still watching me." It's been 6 months since the fire. 6 months since I last saw Adrian's face through the smoke. I've tried to move on, working double shifts at the diner, pretending I'm just another guy who's never seen fangs or blood curses. But every time I close my eyes, I see him standing in that burning hall, his eyes filled with sorrow and love, his hand slipping away. The letter stayed hidden in my jacket pocket. "When the moon bleeds again," I'd read those words so many times they'd etched themselves into me. Every night, I'd check the sky, wondering what a bleeding moon even meant. An eclipse? A sign? Or just his poetic way of saying goodbye? Then one night it happened. The moon turned red. It wasn't dramatic, no thunder. No screams, just a quiet shift in the world's pulse. I was walking home along the river when the wind changed, carrying a scent I hadn't smelled in months. Smoke, rain, and something darkly sweet. My heart stuttered. I turned and there he was. Adrian. He looked the same and yet not. His skin, once pale and cold, now held a faint trace of life. His eyes, though still crimson, were softer, like he'd learned how to forgive himself. "You kept your promise," I whispered. He smiled faintly, stepping closer. "I told you I'd come back when I could touch the world again without burning." I reached out, afraid he'd vanish if I blinked. But his hand met mine, warm, real. For the first time, his touch didn't chill me. It grounded me. "What happened to you?" I asked. He looked at the river, his voice low. "Your blood didn't just save me, changed me. I can live between worlds now, neither fully vampire nor human. But it came with a price. I had to sleep for months to keep from tearing myself apart." There was pain in his words, but peace too. I could see the way he stood taller now, no longer burdened by the curse that defined him. "And now?" I asked. "Why come back?" He met my gaze. "Because I promised. Because you believed in me when I didn't deserve it. Because you gave me your life when I'd already lost mine." The snow swirled around us, catching the red light of the moon. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the slow rhythm of his heartbeat, something I never thought I'd hear again. "I'm not your prince anymore," he said. "I'm just a man trying to learn how to love without fear." "Then learn with me," I said quietly. He froze. "After everything I've done? Especially after everything you've done." For a heartbeat, we stood there, two broken pieces of a story that shouldn't have survived, and yet somehow did. Then he kissed me. It wasn't hungry or desperate like before. It was slow, trembling, real. The kind of kiss that said, "We made it." The world around us melted away, the snow, the river, the years of pain. There was just this moment, this strange miracle of finding light in something born of darkness. We spent the rest of the night talking by the water, as if time had paused just for us. He told me about the other show some vampires had begun changing too, freed from the curse when the ancient bloodlines broke. How he'd wandered through cities, looking for me, always drawn back to Chicago because that's where your heart still lives. When dawn began to bloom, he looked at me with something like fear. "If I stay, they'll come for me again. Hunters don't forgive. And now that I'm neither one of them nor a monster, I don't belong anywhere." I took his hand. "Then belong with me." He laughed softly, the sound like snow melting on glass. "You make it sound easy." "It's not supposed to be easy," I said. "It's supposed to be worth it." For once, he didn't argue. We moved out of the city a week later, a small cabin near Lake Superior, where the nights are long and the world feels infinite. He works in the garden, planting things that can actually grow now under the sunlight that no longer burns him. I paint, I write, and sometimes I wake in the middle of the night to find him watching Menet in hunger, but in awe. He says I'm the reason he still believes in redemption. I tell him he's the reason I still believe in love. And maybe that's what this story was always about, not about blood or curses, but about two lost souls who found each other in the ruins of what should have been tragedy. Sometimes, when the moon turns red again, he takes my hand and whispers, "Do you remember?" I always do. I remember the fire, the fear, the bite, the pain, and how all of it led to this quiet, impossible peace. Love doesn't need to be pure to be true. It just needs to survive. And ours did. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.